Welcome to Northern Kentucky History Hour. It's my pleasure to welcome you tonight. I'm your host, Heather Cook. I am a sophomore at the College of Worcester studying political science and history, and I work as a visitor service associate at the museum while I'm not in school. Tonight, I'm coming to you live from the Behringer-Crawford Museum, and I'm very excited to introduce to you our guest presenter tonight. But first, we're going to thank all of our sponsors who make Northern Kentucky History Hour possible. History Hour is a project of the Behringer-Crawford Museum, Northern Kentucky's History Museum. Behringer-Crawford Museum is supported in part by the City of Covington, Kenton County Fiscal Court, ArtsWave, Kentucky Arts Council, Northern Kentucky Sports Hall of Fame, the Carol Ann and Ralph B. Hale Jr. U.S. Bank Foundation, and our members. If you're not yet a member of our museum, please consider joining us. You can get special access to discounts and exclusive programming, and you join the great community that we have here at the museum. You can learn more and join at bcmuseum.org. Before we begin, let's go over a few reminders for tonight. Everyone's microphone was muted upon entering the meeting so that we can all pay closer attention to the presentation, but feel free to have your video on or off. It just depends what you prefer. But just so you are aware, if you do choose to keep your video on, others on the call are able to see it even while the screen is being shared. If you have a question or comment to share, please type it in the chat and we will try to get to as many questions as possible immediately following the presentation. There also will be a trivia question tonight. The first person to enter the correct answer into the chat will win a History Hour pin. So let's meet tonight's speaker. Mike Reeder is a vintage instrument appraiser and owner of Mike's Music Incorporated, which encompasses Mike's Music fine vintage instruments stores in Clifton, Ohio, and Covington, Kentucky. Mike's Music Productions, the audio-video division, and the Village Theater, a live performance theater. With over 35 years of experience in performance and production in the audio and video realm, Reeder is a musician, songwriter, columnist, host, and interviewer, producer, director, vintage guitar connoisseur, and consultant. As a multi-instrumentalist, he has performed with numerous regional and national touring bands. Reeder has hosted notable PBS KET specials, interviewing artists such as Vince Gill, Ed King, Greg Martin, and Joe Bonamassa. He is currently directing and hosting The Village, produced shows such as Fret Buzz, Guitar Pickers, and Live at the Village, which can be seen on the Village YouTube page. Mike, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, Heather. So glad to be here today. And I want to thank you guys for having me at the museum and putting me on the show and asking me to do this. So happy to be doing this with you guys. And, you know, when I was first asked to do this, I wasn't sure why or what interest you guys would have in what I do, but we have had a long history in town and dealt with a lot of, you know, famous people and done a lot of business with, you know, local musicians. And we're starting a new thing down here in Covington at our Mainstrasse location, which is becoming our production house. So I'd like to just kind of start by reviewing where we've been, since this is a history show, and talking to you guys about, you know, what's happened over the last 30 years, because it's been quite an adventure. So I'm going to start by just starting some photos of the past things that we've done, and, you know, talk about that. You know, when I first started, it was me and my wife. The reason we did this is because we were playing in a band together, and, you know, we would go out and, you know, play shows, and we would look for gear for us. And I just loved doing that. We were songwriters, and it was the main thing that, you know, we were focused on. And, you know, as time went on, we had, you know, fun doing that. And I was working a paper route and going through different jobs. And we discussed that, you know, since you like doing this so much, why don't we look for a place that we can, you know, open up a store, you know. So we bought a place down on Route 8 in Ross, Kentucky, which is sort of in the middle of nowhere down on Route 8, if you guys are familiar with that, past Silver Grove, past Melbourne. Ross is like maybe like 6 buildings. So we started there in the basement of our house, and we had a place called Mike's Music in Flea. And, you know, it was just me and her. and we would just, work the store, and I would go hunt the countryside for guitars and try to find things that I thought I could resell or things that I would like. And we really had no money at that time. So, I would do things like, garbage pick and go in all the different stores, pawn shops. And there was a thing called the trading post, which I would get up at like 6 a.m. and go. And if I found something, even if it was, 3-4 states away, I would go, and my wife would have to watch the store. So, that went on for probably, I would say, about a year or two. And at that time, Mike's Music and Flea was just me finding things I could resell. And I mean, it would be anything. It would be, a washing machine. It could be anything. And I started with my first probably 7 personal guitars, I believe it was. And it quickly turned into Mike's Music over that time period. So it was Mike's Music and Flea for probably 1 year before it just became Mike's Music. And we were just selling music gear at that time once we became Mike's Music. And we would place ads in Vintage Guitar Magazine and the local papers for selling and buying. And we would travel the United States and go to guitar shows. And that was the process when I was learning about guitars mainly, and, learning what was popular and meeting people in the industry. And, we would take our child with us, and it was just very, just us. There was nobody else. I'd have a friend come watch the store every now and then, but it was pretty much just us. And at that time, we were still playing in bands, and we would play up in Clifton. And I thought to myself, it was a big music hub up at Clifton and UC. And I thought to myself, if we could have a store up here, then we would be able to, we would be able to get a lot more people to know about us, because that store was right next to Bogart's. The one I ended up buying was right next to Bogart's. It's like 2 doors down. And that's when we opened what most people think of as Mike's Music. And we had both stores going for like a year or two together. And that store has been very successful. It was, the best thing I ever did was opening up the Mike's Music in Clifton. And we would travel guitar shows, and we would find, all kinds of collectible guitars. And I learned, from friends how to do that and how to sort of succeed at, buying and, flipping or selling guitars to other people, and meeting, people that would come through Bogart's and tour bands that would come through, and, meeting collectors. I've met people like Grace Potter, who came in, for her birthday, and the band bought her a guitar, and it was a white Flying V. And that was one of the experiences I'll never forget, because they blindfolded her, and I would put different guitars on her, and she would play them until she found the ones she liked. And that Flying V eventually became her signature model. So, over the years, it's been, a wild, crazy adventure. We've got to meet anybody from Dylan to the Eagles came in the store, Fleetwood Mac, Joe Walsh, all kinds of artists in all kinds of genres. And, I learned so much from all these people and met so many people. And it's been fun too. I've had local people that have bought their first guitar from me, who now are, quite successful and amazing musicians. And we're so proud and excited to be a part of the music scene here in Cincinnati. It's been a real gift. That sort of evolved into me being asked to be an appraiser. I was already an appraiser for Vintage Guitar Magazine and for some other, Vintage Guitar Price Guide and different things like that. And a friend of mine, Steve Schaefer, who was one of the producers, are involved in Kentucky Collectibles TV show. He asked me to be the music appraiser for the show. So I did that, and that show existed for like 5 or 6 years. During that process, Steve, who knew me, would ask me, what was going on in the store, and I would say, I just sold a guitar to Ed King, or some artist, and we became friends or whatever. And Steve suggested, well, why don't we start doing some specials for the show? So we ended up doing that, which was quite an adventure. And we, I ended up doing, I can't remember everybody, but we did probably 5 or 6. Joe Bonamassa was a friend of mine from collecting guitars. Greg Martin. We did Vince Gill, which was great. We got to go to Vince's house and see his place, which was just loaded with killer guitars, and hang out there for a couple days. Vince is like the sweetest man in the world, and he was very gracious, and we had a great time doing those shows. Those shows eventually sort of segued into me being involved in doing some guitar clinics. The whole time this is going on, obviously the stores are cooking, the website's going, and we're buying and selling guitars. But I was getting more into the media aspect of things. And, that was really fun. So we put on some guitar clinics for a few years. I also wrote some articles for like Northern Kentucky Magazine, and I was sort of dabbling in that kind of media. The guitar shows were a blast. I would take out a bunch of guitars, and people would come out, and I would pass out some of the guitars to the audience. We'd talk about my collections and the history of instruments and that kind of thing. And that's always fun for me. I love meeting people, and I'm always happy when people come by the store and want to talk about guitars. And this was an opportunity for everybody to just have fun and learn about guitars, and I'm going to do a lot more of those guitar clinics. I've already done one more here for our YouTube channel, and down here at the Village Theater, we're going to do more of those as time goes on. I did one for the 20th Century Guitar Museum at the Cincinnati Museum, and that was a blast. And at some point during this process, Gibson had approached me through a friend of mine. Actually, I think it was through Greg Martin, about reproducing some of my guitars from my collection. And, some of those were done, and that was a real honor to do that too. So, we were involved in that. And somewhere around, I would say, the year 2005, I believe it was, we ended up buying what is now the Covington location down in Mainstrasse. And it was owned at that time by a sort of friend of mine who was also a musician, and the store was called the Hayes Brothers. And they were doing sort of, almost exactly what we are now doing. So when I saw what he was doing there, it motivated me and really wanted me to, to have this place when it became for sale. It eventually became for sale. So what we do here at the Covington location is we have a music store in the front room, and now we have the theater in the back room, which was what Hayes Brothers did, and we have a recording studio upstairs. For years, when I first bought this place, it was the plan to do that, but it never really progressed into that. We just the store just kind of took over, because that's what happens at Mike's Music. The store just sort of progresses, and it can eat up everything because we're very busy, and we all do love doing that. So even though we never had the theater open, and we never were doing production in the studio or having our media YouTube page like we do now, it was always the intention. And as the Kentucky Collectibles show went into hiatus, I told, I just made myself say, this is the time we're actually going to do this. So we started our production division, and we've been progressing at that as time goes on. We have our YouTube page, which is called The Village. And please, everyone, go out and subscribe and support our YouTube shows. And, you can see on there, all kinds of all of our different shows, which are, we have Fret Buzz, we have Live at the Village, which is sort of a take on what you would see in Austin City Limits. A band comes in and they play, 5 to 7, 8 songs. And then we have a short little interview with them. And we're going to have a lot more of those Live at the Village shows, hopefully, with audiences. That's one of the things we really want to start doing now that COVID's over, is having live audiences and having live shoots. We also do a show called Fret Buzz, which is sort of an early morning tongue-in-cheek coffee / guitar songwriter show where a bunch of friends get together on a Sunday morning and we just, we have a good time. My co-host, William Weber, and who's a sort of a notorious musician in this area, involved, and he's a blast and hilarious. And I bring in cool guitars and we pass them around, and every artist does a song on those guitars. And then we discuss the guitar and the song and what they have going on and just have a good old time. We've done 18 episodes of Fret Buzz now. And, as time goes on, we're going to start doing more and more. We sort of went on hiatus for during COVID on a lot of the shows, but we're going to start doing more and more of that as time goes on. Another one of the shows that I do on the YouTube channel down here at the Village is called Guitar Pickers. And that show is sort of a take off of what I was doing with Kentucky Collectibles. I'll travel somewhere, or I'll interview a collector or a rock star or somebody. I'll go backstage at one of their shows. We'll talk about gear. We'll look at all the gear, or I'll go on a sort of a guitar safari thing, and we'll travel around and we'll buy guitars. One of the episodes, we went out to LA and we spent 2 weeks traveling across the United States. William went with me. There's a 2-part version of that, which I think is one of the better ones. It's really funny if people want to check that out. And all these shows you can find on the YouTube channel. And, I have 2 or 3 of those episodes that are getting ready to come out. I just released part 2 to one I did with Greg Martin, where I visited his studio and we looked at his gear and we talked about it all. It's sort of inside baseball for guitar people, but there's some of those episodes that are just good old fun. And then, the shows on the YouTube channel also are on the All Guitar Network. So you can catch those shows on the All Guitar Network, which also airs all of our shows. We're proud to be on there, and we appreciate their support. And all of this takes place down here at the Village Theater with support from a lot of my friends, and we're so lucky to have on staff, amazing crew and people that are just blessed with incredible ears and producers. My good friend Brian Lovely, who helped me start up the production house, is one of the engineers. I have my good friend Mike Tucolvi. Recently, we have added Dave Swart and Pete Davidson. We have Mike Tucolvi and Mike Wojciechowicz and Elton Clifton. All those people are engineers and producers in our studio and assist me with a lot of the production and a lot of the capture for clients that produce videos or audio with us. We just did a video for my friend who did an amazing video. Dave just did this video here, and we're so proud to do that video for David Rhodes Brown, who just released a great song, which is also on our YouTube channel, on our new playlist, which we have just released, called VTV. And VTV is a 24-hour streaming audio, video, TV channel where you can go to that playlist and watch local artists all day long, 24 hours a day. We have over 200 videos of local artists up there. If you're driving in your car, you can get on YouTube and just hit that playlist and either just listen or watch if you're someplace beside your car, and enjoy local music and support the local artists. Because really what this is all about that we're doing down here is trying to support local music and local artists and the creative side of the area, so that people have an outlet so they can be seen and heard, which is, the real goal of what we have going on here at the production house down at the village. And, we're really looking forward to doing more stuff like that. Like I said, doing, hosting, maybe possibly even hosting some small guitar shows, or, having more clinics or show and tell, supporting local artists. Veronica Graham just did her amazing album down here, and we're so proud that she did. And it just got released, called Chaos Magic. And she did it in the studio, produced by Clifton. And, it sounds amazing. It's something you guys got to check out. And we've got a lot of cool artists coming out, some music coming out that was recorded here, Royal Bloody Family, and just all kinds of great people that are doing videos and audio production here. And we're super excited to be part of that and be a part of what's going on in this area. Also, besides that, during COVID, we got our liquor license for the theater. So we've been having live shows. And, the next thing that's coming up is May 29th. We're having a benefit for the SPCA, which is called Music for Mutts. And there's like 10 bands. It's $5 to get in. You can come in and support good causes. We're going to try to have a lot more benefits down here, and a lot more live events. And you can find those on our website, which is mikesmusicohio.com. And at the top of that website, there's all kinds of different categories. You can go into the village and see the events at the Village Theater, or the Mike's Music production page to find out information about, our audio video production, our YouTube channel, and the like. And, obviously we also have all kinds of other social media pages. We have, Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. We'd appreciate all the support that you give us there. And, anybody who wants to be a client can contact us through any of the pages and let us know what they'd like to do. If you want to be, have your video on VTV, you can communicate with us through any of those as well. We're still looking for submissions for that. The more the merrier, so we can get you seen. Make sure that you let your friends know that you're on there and ask them to subscribe to the page so that we support everybody. And the goal of VTV is that, your video scrolls into the next video, and people that would like to see you will see the next guy, and so on. So that's, the intention of what we're doing here is to support everybody. Another thing that's probably going to happen here in the next 6 months is there was a documentary that was filmed about 5 years ago that was sort of put on the back burner, waiting for the right way to air it. So that's going to happen. I believe we're going to have probably a viewing here at the theater, and have everyone be invited for that. I'm excited to have that happening in the next few months, hopefully. And adding lots of shows. We want local musicians to contact us, so we have a place here for you guys to play at that we would love to share with you. We have an amazing PA and a great light show, and an amazing sound guy. Dave Swart is our engineer. And we, often will capture that stuff for social media as well. So as time goes on, we're going to be doing a lot more of that kind of production. So we're super excited to have, the going and to be up and running down here the way it was initially intended from the start. No, this building is an amazing building since it's a history show. I'll talk about the building the guy who was the architect for studio in LA, and it's, I think just this building in its own right, and I fell in love with it from the first day that I saw it. It has a kind of a crazy history. It's supposed to be haunted. It's on the National Haunted Registry, and I've personally heard some crazy sounds and weird stuff down here myself. A lot of my employees have told me over the years that they heard, like chains and crazy sounds going on. I never really, I just dismissed it for, crazy guitar guys. But I personally have experienced some odd things myself down here, and I do believe there's some oddness going on. But the building is super cool. If you haven't been in, you should come in and check out the theater, and see a show. Come see one of our live events. We can't wait to have you here. And I appreciate everybody's support over the years and helping us out. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'll go ahead and repeat the trivia question since nobody has put an answer in yet. That is, what guitar of Mike's did Gibson remake? Maybe in the meantime, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe how many local artists you have currently that work with the village, and like what type of music they play and stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, we work, through the YouTube page and everything. There's hundreds of different people. We've had, on Fret Buzz and also in the studio too. We've had all kinds of different artists. I mean, our first show, we had Rob Fetters on, who, was in the Raisins and the Psycho Dots, and just like, he's a personal hero of mine. We've had all kinds of artists. Every show has 4 or 5, and like I said, we've done I think 18 now. From country artists to rock artists, and in the studio, because we have so many different producers and engineers in the studio, everyone's has their own clients, and we've had Veronica and a Bloody Roll Family, and just that's a wide variety of country artists have been in here. We did Kentucky Mile in the studio. The newbies were on the Fret Buzz. We've just done all kinds of stuff, and it's just been a real joy, and a pleasure that I have these friends that are willing to participate.
We did have a question here. What was the original name of the Main Street building?
I don't know. It was called the Family Theater. Yeah, when it was a movie theater up until I believe the 70s, when it became a church, it was called the Family Theater. Yeah, and I spoke with some people that you said they used to come here and watch movies, and upstairs there's a projector room, and on the wall there's notes on the wall for like from 1941, 1942, like reel notes, like when to change the reels, when they would change the movie film reels. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's still on the walls up there.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how you started getting into like music and playing guitar?
Yeah, well, I was initially interested in guitar from my older brother. My brother was 15 years older than me, and in a lot of ways sort of took me into his world. And he was he didn't play guitar, but he was a huge music fan, and he turned me on to bands like the Beatles and the Who, and all kinds of great songwriters like Loudon Wainwright, and introduced me into the songwriting world, Dylan and people that poet kind of people that would storytell, and that kind of stuff really motivated me as a songwriter. And I still remember like the first time I heard the Beatles when I was a kid, and went into my room and played 45s over and over. And, that changed my world. And, I had a good friend named Ray Johnson in high school. We started a band together, and he was very into vintage guitars. He had and back then vintage guitars really weren't that big of a thing. He had a poster of what they call a burst on his wall, which is a 1959 Les Paul. And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And, fell in love with guitars through him. So that is how sort of my adventure started. And then hunting out tones for myself, just experimenting in the bands I was in, and, learning to play and sing and playing different instruments, sort of started on guitar, but quickly went to bass and play drums a little bit and that kind of thing.
So we did have another question.
Sure.
What are the street numbers of your two buildings on Main Street?
Well, I only have one building on Main Street, and it's the old Family Theater, Mike's Music Productions, and Village Theater. And it is 635 Main Street in Mainstrasse. We are between the 6th and 7th block, right in the middle of the street, or the block. An old movie theater. And the other address, I'm sorry, is in Clifton on campus, on UC campus, on what they used to call Short Vine, which was a famous sort of 2-block area where the clubs were. Bogart still is next to us. And it is 2615 Short Vine Street. And we've been there for 32 years now. And it is 3 stories. And, we have 10 rooms in that building of guitars and different things to look at. And, we've been lucky to sort of serve everyone from, beginners to collectors to, giant rock stars, going up and coming down. So we're very pleased to still be around doing that, and excited about the new adventure here in Mainstrasse.
Yeah. Do you have maybe like a favorite song to play?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I really like, the first thing that popped in my head is I really like the Dylan song I and I. I think that's a great song. It's funny when you play bands and you play in music. When you play music, it's the songs that you play often aren't the songs that you like to listen to, because when you're learning them, you sort of burn out on them a little bit, especially if you played them a lot, or you're in production with them. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy playing that kind of stuff. We do mostly originals in the bands that I play in now. I play in like 5 bands. The main original band I play in is called Chalk Eye, and I have sort of a songwriting partner in that band who writes a lot of the songs, and we participate together. His name is Bill Sears, and we do sort of like what I would call weirdo Americana music, which is, I don't know, it's sort of a cross between like I would say Neil Young and sort of like U2-ish. It's an odd sort of original take, on original indie rock kind of stuff. But there's a lot of sort of Southern twang to a lot of what we do as well. We do some songs acoustic that are almost bluegrass, and then we do some songs that I think most people would consider, on the harder, sort of edgier side of indie rock. So that band, we're going to be playing at Music for Mutts on the 29th with 10 other bands that are going to be here. And you can see that list of bands on the event page on on Facebook, and check that out. Make sure you come for that, support that. And the other bands I play in a band called Mud Pies, which I've played with for, we've been together for 26 years, I believe, or maybe more. And that band is sort of what I would consider like a blues rock jammy sort of band, with sort of a soul edge. The singer in that band is Forrest Horn, who has an amazing voice. just, great, pretty, amazing singer who has a large presence that just takes over the stage. And my bandmate, Mark Rea and Paul Sketch. Mark is an amazing guitarist and a great friend of mine. And he managed a store for, I think, over 10 years down there in Covington before it became a production house. So that band plays out all the time. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah. And then there's another band that I play in called Motorcycle Hearse, who we did a sort of a 2-part series on the Village. Sort of has a wide variety of participants that play in that. One of the singers is Aaron Thomas, and then a girl singer called Andrea DeGlame, and Steve Earle from the F-Hand Wigs is the drummer, and I'm the bass player, and Rob Olson is the guitar player. And that's a fun band that we occasionally make appearance in. So yeah, I mean, we appreciate all your support with the bands too.
Do you have maybe a favorite style of guitar to use? Like, what are maybe the differences of some of them, and why would you prefer some over others?
That's interesting. Over the years of being lucky to have a bunch of guitars and a bunch of like old, pretty cherished guitars. I particularly love Fender Telecasters and Esquires. And in Chalkeye, I play a 57 Esquire. It's my main guitar, and I just love that guitar, and I love all those guitars. And I also love Les Pauls. And when it comes to acoustic guitars, I like pre-war Martins and pre-war 50s Gibsons and Southern Jumbos and that kind of thing. But vintage guitars generally sound very good, and from the 40s back into the teens, from Martin and Gibson, all of them are pretty fantastic guitars. I particularly like D28s and some of the fancier ones like D45s. Acoustically, I like some of the smaller body guitars as well, and J200s in the Gibson world. But from doing this, I sort of fall in love with other people's passions sometimes. If a friend will come to me and say, I really want to find say a Gibson SG, which is an electric model, and I'll start hunting for that for them, or maybe a few of those will come in the store. It's infectious. So before I know it, I find myself, playing one or being involved in one, and that happens a lot in this business. Because most people that do this because they love the instruments and not for the money. So that's happened to me personally. I mean, that's how I started playing mandolin, was trying to hunt for, really good mandolins for a friend. So, there's a lot of instruments I like, but those are the main ones that I personally like.
So since we were talking about guitars a little bit, and the trivia question was answered, we can go ahead and go over that.
Okay.
So the question was, what guitar of Mike's did Gibson remake? And we did have somebody answer, Woodrow Schuster, and the answer was a 1959 Gibson Les Paul. Do you want to talk about that guitar a little bit? And
sure. Yeah, I will. I'll share a photo of it. That guitar was one of my guitars. One of the things that I'm involved in, or not so much now, but I would sort of go through phases where I would collect different things. One of the things I collected was like blue Fenders, and I would have like Lake Placid Blue collection, and I would kind of do that and enjoy doing that and collect them in shows. Then I would sort of sell part of them off and move on to something else. Pelham Blue guitars. Well, I went through a phase where I wanted to get every version of the Les Paul. And so I proceeded to attempt to do that and pretty much succeeded. There's always little weird versions, but so I have a very large Les Paul collection. And one of the things that I ended up with, and I've always loved and lucky to own about 50 of them, I would say, over the last 30 years, is Les Paul bursts, or flame top Les Pauls between 1958 and 1960. And one of them was this guitar that was nicknamed Snake by a previous collector, the guitar was owned by one of the guys in Aerosmith. And that guitar, Gibson contacted me about reproducing, which is this guitar on the screen right now. And they did a model which they called the Reader Burst. And it is a 1959 Les Paul, serial number 90799. It is one of the Gibson Collector Choice Series guitars, which they made a limited run of. And Gibson treated me like a king and sent me down there, and we produced those guitars. And they, painstakingly did every scratch mark and nick and every feature of the guitar. And what you're seeing here in the screen is the top one is the original one, the bottom is production, and our Reader's Burst. So that is the guitar that they reproduced.
So we have a couple more questions. How many guitars do you personally own?
Wow. I actually don't know. I probably have a couple hundred guitars that are mine. And that varies because, even though they're mine, if I have a friend who's really passionate about wanting to get it, it won't be mine anymore for, it'll move on. But right now I would say probably 100 or so, maybe, I don't know, in between 100 and 200 guitars. The stores probably have between them 500 to 1,000 in inventory between the two stores, and put up and repair and all that kind of stuff. We typically have on the website, we typically would have 500, 600 things listed on the website. And that is not even close to what we have in the stores, because it's a lot of work to keep up on it all.
With all the guitars that you personally own, do you play or have played all of them, or any of them like just for show?
I have, usually when I first get them, I'm using them, or I wouldn't keep them. Or sometimes if it's a theme kind of thing, like if I'm looking for Pelham Blue guitars, which is a very rare custom color Gibson, and let's say I want to have collect Pelham Blue guitars, I would buy the guitars. But I play them if they're not put up. And I have a sort of a studio room and a rehearsal space where I have a lot of those guitars out, where I sometimes record and play them. When you have that many guitars, you sort of have to just decide, I think I would like to try this guitar this week and hit it and, make sure it's in tune and that kind of thing. So yeah, I do them. I do play them, but probably not as frequently as I do, obviously not as frequently as the one I play all the time, which is the 57 Esquire. I often will take 2 or 3 backups to gigs or something. And I took a 57 Les Paul that I hadn't had out of the case in probably 8 months, not long ago. So yeah, they get used, and I do play them. But there is a few that are for show. Sometimes I'll keep a guitar that's like, I have a guitar that was, belonged to, one of the guys in Nirvana. So I have that guitar sort of on display that I never play, but for the most part, my guitars get used.
So we have another question from the audience. Do you plan on a bluegrass show at the theater?
Absolutely, yes. We will have some bluegrass shows. And, when we do the bigger events, like, we did a benefit for Mayfield called Music for Mayfield. We're often recording those events and they are up on our YouTube channel. So like if you go to our YouTube channel and you go at the Live at the Village playlist, you can see all the artists that performed on Music for Mayfield. Hopefully this next benefit that we do on the 29th, we'll capture some of that as well, I hope. And you can also see that stuff there. But yeah, we're going to have more bluegrass stuff. We're also potentially going to have maybe a songwriter night or a jam night or both here in the theater. And, that'll definitely be a big part of it.
So I don't know if you'll be able to answer this or not, but just from like your experience with all the local artists that come into your shop and stuff, what would you say the local music scene is?
I think we have extremely talented people around here, and they're not appreciated enough. There's a wide variety of players and a lot of young people that are really, really good. And, that's one of the things that I've been lucky to be around and to meet is, new players that are great, some of the older guys that are great, and they're not appreciated enough. And there's not really enough places for people that, create original music to be seen and heard. The music scene has really changed. Like when I first started, there was a lot more places where an original act could play. And, obviously through COVID, even got weirder. So, that is the main focus that I really want to, help achieve is to support that in this area and, provide a place for that to happen.
Is there a specific genre or a couple that you think maybe local artists lean towards, or is it really just all over the place?
Well, I'm sort of in an odd position because I'm sort of involved in a lot of the different scenes. But, there's a really strong, what we call the Beardo scene or the, Americana scene that's supported by the Southgate House, who do a wonderful job of having those kind of artists in. And, they also have there's incredible metal acts around this area too. Not as many places or as often, but there's things like Whispering Beard, who supports local, Americana songwriter and more of a folky kind of genre. And what we're going to try to do is do a wide variety of that. I also want to have some jazz artists in here. I want to have some live, piano acts. I want to do a wide variety of things so that, we can support everyone that's in the music community. And the same thing with the studio. I mean, if we have, a songwriter needs a backup band, I want to connect those people that needs a backup band. I want to connect those people with the artists in the area that can provide that for them. So, yeah, I mean, us personally at the Village Theater, we're not going to sort of be tied into one genre. I would just say our main thing will be to support original live music, and also to support some good causes along the line, and at the benefits and things like that we do, we will have non-original music at those things. Like there'll be covers and stuff for the general public that aren't necessarily interested in original local music. We will have that kind of stuff too. So yeah, we just want to have a hub here that people can come and enjoy that sort of thing.
Just want to let people know we do have about 10 minutes left still, so make sure you're getting your questions in if you have any. In the meantime, maybe do you have a project that you haven't done that maybe you would like to do someday?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Well, I talked about this a little bit earlier, and it's sort of been on the back burner for now going on 5 or 6 years. The documentary that was never released. That is a personal, at this point, is sort of a personal project that I want to get out and do a lot more of the video projects like that have sort of been on the back burner. We have 2 or 3 other episodes of Guitar Pickers and things like that are needed to be edited and shared. And then I'm really highly motivated to start doing live captures here with the audiences. So if your band wants to be a participant in Live at the Village, we would love to have you. And, we'll do all the production for you. And, I will say that also anyone in the business community or would like to sponsor us, help do these shows, because it is a big production and the stores have been sort of, taking care of doing that. And we would love to have some sponsors for any of the shows so that we can produce that and keep the producers going and keep creativity going, because these engineers and these producers really deserve to be supported in this area, and also the artists do as well. So yeah, we look forward to doing that, and hope that everyone will come by the theater and check out some shows and come hang out.
Do you maybe, you said you played a couple different instruments, maybe besides the guitar, what would be your favorite instrument to play?
Besides the guitar, I like to play the mandolin. I don't do it a whole lot, Chalk Eye, I think I do 2-3 songs on mandolin. I really enjoy playing the mandolin. I also like playing the drums. One of the things that me and Bill did in Chalk Eye was we would play 2-piece, and often I would do all the drum tracks on some of the recordings for the earlier stuff that we did. We now, use our main drummer, Ryan Moore, who's amazing. But when we started, we would just do 2-piece, and I would end up cutting all, the sort of like the odd instruments. Bill would do guitar, and I would play guitar, and then I would do drums and bass and some aux drums, auxiliary drums or whatever, and then add some mandolin, and that process has, made me really fall in love with playing mandolin more. And I also got this weird guitar recently. It's like a weird double neck. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it. It's a double neck. It has a mandolin on it and a 6-string guitar. It's made from the 50s, sort of mystery double neck guitar that I've been using in some of the live shows and playing it through some odd effects that and creating sort of a singy, weird saxophone sound. It's a strange instrument. It's a mandolin, but it's only a 4-string mandolin. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy personally playing a whole bunch of different instruments, and I spent a lot of time as a bass player. So guitar sort of became my second instrument, even though it was the first thing I ever did for a long, long time. So it's been fun, falling in love with guitar again as well, as a player.
So since we don't have any more questions, it is almost 7:30, so we will go ahead and wrap up. So I just want to remind everyone about our Curators Chats that are available on Facebook and YouTube on the museum's page. We will be putting up new Curators Chats every Thursdays. And we do have our upcoming Music at BCM concert series through the summer, which are on Thursdays as well. The first one will be on June 9th with Ramona Blaine and the company. She's always really great. Everybody loves her. So come out and see Ramona Blaine. The concerts are on Thursdays through the summer, starting on June 9th from 7 to 9 p.m. So come and see those. The whole schedule for the concert series can be found on our website, bcmuseum.org. We'd like to thank our sponsors and supporters of BCM again, as well as the staff, the trustees, and the members of the Behringer-Crawford Museum. For more Northern Kentucky history throughout the week, you can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, where you can see the Curators Chats again, as well as the rest of the History Hour videos and other videos that we put out there. So please like and subscribe to those. As a reminder, there will not be a Northern Kentucky History Hour next week as we continue our bi-weekly schedule. And we will be back on June 1st with Russ Thomas of the Campbell County Historical and Genealogical Society, and he will be talking about General James Taylor. So with that, take care, everyone, and good night. Thank you for joining us.